So Mick, are you confused about low gain overdrive pedals?
I'm confused about everything, Dan.
Hey everyone, welcome to That Pedal Show. Dan here.
Mick here, hello. That was very nice.
Reconnecting with Red.
Very, very, very nice. I'd tell you what I enjoyed about that, especially was the dynamic,
Hello.
which we'll talk about.
Indeed.
But, we're talking about low gain overdrives today and whatever transparent means, and unicorns, and mermaids.
Indeed.
Before that, some housekeeping.
Indeed. First of all, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do.
Yep. And what else? Go to That Pedal Show store. I was just thinking about my jeans are a bit dirty. If you notice, my jeans are a bit dirty. I don't normally wear dirty jeans.
It's a Mick disclaimer.
I walk the dog at lunchtime and it's really muddy. And I didn't take my gaiters.
Right, okay.
Because obviously I own gaiters, right?
I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
That's where I am.
Yeah. I don't know, it's muddy. Anyway, please go to That Pedal Show store and buy things like T-shirts and pedals and other
Clean
things.
jeans?
No jeans. Would be nice to sell jeans.
That'll be fun.
Merch is the primary way we fund this show. Also, please visit thatpedalshop.com in the USA. If you're in the USA and you want to buy some pedals, hit up thatpedalshop.com where you can buy stuff. Probably none of this stuff, but other stuff.
Indeed. I thought we'd have a look today at some low gain overdrives and just discuss that, why low gain overdrives are important, what they can do for your playing. Mick and I talk a lot about dynamics and that sort of stuff. We're going to get into that. But primarily, a low gain overdrive is something that has, I find it gives you the ability to interface into your amplifier, get a dynamic level of gain that you can control with the volume or with the pick. But most importantly for me, it's not a boost. I'm not boosting into the amplifier. I'm not driving the amp gain structure. I'm actually, a really great use for low gain overdrives is actually to pull things back a little bit.
Yeah, right.
So what I thought we'd do, so that, you know, everyone can hear that we're not actually pushing the pedals, is that when we set up these sounds today, we're going to make them all a little bit quieter than the direct sound into the amplifiers.
Than the actual amps.
Yep.
Okay.
So we're getting the maximum amount of headroom from the amps.
I think before we get into that, when we say gain,
Yep.
what do we mean in this instance? Because in audio terms, gain simply means more.
More.
More amplitude.
We're talking about distortion. We're talking about the way the notes distort and limit and clip and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's an important distinction because in audio terms, if you're talking about gain, you mean make the signal louder or increase the amplitude of the signal. What we're talking about is when you get to that point and it starts overdriving, aren't we? So when we use the term gain, it is replaceable with overdrive.
Indeed. Yeah, cool. So I assembled an array of some really interesting pedals that do a really great job at low gain. So the low gain thing, as opposed to a medium or a high gain thing, if you think of high gain as distortion, medium as overdrive, but the lower gain thing for me is like a subtle dynamic overdrive. Now, obviously there's a million more different pedals that we could have chosen from, and the reality is a lot of higher gain overdrives work great as low gain overdrives.
All you do is turn the overdrive down.
All you do is you turn that gain distortion down.
What have we got on there that does loads of overdrive? Does the Nordland do loads of overdrive?
The Nordland does loads of overdrive, yeah.
And the Blues Driver. Let's just define our terms a sec.
Okay.
And say, okay, we would call this a higher gain sound, we would call this a medium gain sound, and we would call this a low gain sound.
Love it. All right.
Never actually plugged the Nordland in. So let's see if it works with this. Dan, do you want to play?
Sure.
Is it a good one to use, do you think?
It really is.
Have you tried it?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm going to turn the drive down to 0. Mm-hmm. If you can't see that, this one here is the drive knob, and you can see the white thing pointing at no o'clock.
Okay.
Keep going. They start a show on low gain overdrives and they're already into heavy overdrive. I think purveyors of modern metal tones may disagree, but for Dan and I, that is a high gain overdrive sound.
Indeed. It's the sound, what you're hearing there is all the clipping in the pedal. The amps have very little to do with it at that point.
Because it's Dan's Tele and because of the nature of that guitar, it still stays present and alive. So I'm going to go back from there, and I'm going to get to what we would call a medium overdrive sound.
Okay, lovely.
So I'll start where we were. We had both of these pedals on. Go for it. So much high end today. I'm not quite sure what that's about. Anyway, we spanned a lower medium gain to a medium gain sound there. Would you agree?
I would agree.
And what you also heard was the tonality of the overdrive changing a bit as we stack two pedals into one another. So we're talking about generalities here, aren't we? We're not talking about precision. There is no point at which this high gain becomes this medium gain
exactly.
and this low gain. We're talking about an ever-changing spectrum of 50 shades of gain, right? But I think it's fair to say that very heavy overdrive sound we had is a higher gain sound.
Yep.
What you just heard is a medium gain sound. So where do we get to low gain? What does that mean?
The way I define low gain is a tone that is clean when you pick light.
Yeah.
And as you dig in, you start to hear it break up.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I'm not talking about a fuzz where you back the volume off and it's really clean and then it goes, woolly mammoth. I'm talking about being able to have the tone, your volume basically all the way up, and then being able to control a level of distortion with your playing dynamics.
Yeah. Now, of course, you can do that with a fuzz, as long as you don't turn the volume past 8.7 on a Strat.
Yeah, and I guess in that you can then classify a really high gain fuzz as a low gain overdrive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a question of degree. All right. So where does that leave us then? Where do we go from here?
Well, what I wanted to do is go through some. These all have got a different thing about them, and basically go through and show you what I think these are really, really good at. All right. So let's start from the right to left. This is the Bondi Sick As. We've featured this on the show before. It's basically a really nice clon with bass and treble. Right?
Okay.
So we can control the bass and treble.
What you mean, Dan, is it's an overdrive inspired by the famous and fabled Clon Centaur.
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Of course. Making down disclaimer here. But I really like the in the lower gain settings. It's a really lovely and dynamic, but that, of course, it's got the famous
1K
thing, but then being able to.
Sorry, for those of you who don't know, that was ridiculously cryptic. The Clon Centaur has a pronounced 1 kilohertz mid-frequency kick.
Yeah. And a lot of people leave that pedal as their always-on pedal because it works so well, especially with Fender type amplifiers. But because you've got a bass and treble control, not just a treble, it's quite easy to make this integrate with a wider range of amplifiers. So I'll get you to play.
Yeah, I'll probably grab some humbuckers in a sec as well, just so that we're not always on single coils, because it gets really interesting with humbuckers.
Indeed.
All right.
I'll get you to play, and I'll set this up for a really nice low gain tone, and I'll discuss it afterwards. So that's a really great example of being able to control the dynamics and the level of clipping simply by how hard you play. Because of that lovely mid-range on that, when it breaks up, you really hear the breakup with that frequency.
Yeah.
And to me, it's the epitome of a really nice low gain overdrive. It's the sort of thing that a lot of people can leave on for for the whole thing, so that when they're digging in, it's almost doing the same job as a compressor.
Yeah,
right.
Because you get a bit of that.
Exactly. Whereas with that off, when you dig in, because the amps have got plenty of headroom, it's like it's loud, loud, loud.
Yeah.
But with a nice low gain overdrive, you can have it on and almost use that to control the overall level of everything.
We've got a nice lot of high end coming through. I don't know whether I just did my ears in the last video, but try guitar with less pronounced high end and humbuckers a sec. We'll just see what the experience of that is.
Okay. Maybe it's just because the AC30's out.
I'm hearing it from the 2-Rock.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost sounds like there's a buffer on somewhere, but I think it's not that. I think it's just is what it is.
It's mud on your jeans.
It's the mud on my jeans. You can really hear the mid nose on it with this guitar.
Yeah,
Can't you?
and can you feel how that mid is sort of breaking up before everything else?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, neck pickup. It's so playable.
Yeah.
Compared to a clean tone because of everything you just said.
Yep.
Because you get that bit of compression and yet you've got all the dynamic of a clean tone.
And it's still quieter than the clean tone.
Yeah.
So I think, and that's for me the main thing about a really nice low gain overdrive is where you get all the dynamics and the harmonics, but it's happening without smashing the front end of the amplifier.
Yeah.
That's sort of the epitome of what a really nice dynamic low gain overdrive is. So moving on to the Nordland, which is the ODR-C.
Goodness, did that just appear?
Can you believe that?
That it just
continuity, man.
It was
we're on it.
It was like teleportation.
So Kai Tichibana, who designed one of our favourite overdrive pedals, the Noble's ODR-1, he designed this, and basically it's the Nordland ODR-C. There's a few different variants of it.
Yeah.
But he's designed it. He believes in the original design. There's a few shortcomings that he's fixed.
Ironed out. Yeah. There's a version of this with the mid control and a version of it without. This is with.
Yeah, but it's also got a control in here called ODC, which is overdrive compression. So you can control the amount of compression that the clipping has. Really, really clever. Now, what I really like about this, you've got bass, middle, and treble. With a pedal such as this, with really powerful EQ, you can marry it into the amplifier. So it's more or less sort of just blends in seamlessly.
Come on then. I'm presuming there's less compression round to the right on that knob.
Exactly.
And how does that feel?
So,
Tell me how it feels.
I mean, it feels great. It's really interesting that you can, with that's designed for like an amplifier that's got loads of transients and loads of headroom. So it's less fizz in the breakup. It's really, really clever.
Such as the 2-Rock, for example.
Indeed.
Okay, let's have a go with humbuckers then. Could you? I'm
Yes.
interested in that control because from a sort of playability point of view, it's that feel of the Overdrive that appeals to me and doesn't appeal to me so much.
Of course.
Or to put it a better way, is perhaps more relevant in different situations.
Yeah.
Even with the bass around there, it takes a bit of bass off.
Yeah.
It's very shapy,
Yeah.
which is kind of what you want in an Overdrive.
Yeah.
Or at least it's what you want as the gain gets higher.
Sure.
Maybe less so at lower gain.
Yeah. I think the EQ is very tweakable, so you can get in there and because don't forget we've reduced the level.
Yeah.
You know, we're not at unity gain, so we're trying to hear how the pedal is breaking up as opposed to pushing the amp. But yeah, I think with a really powerful EQ, that compression thing is really clever. But that sort of thing that you can get to blend in to sort of almost whatever amp you're using.
Yeah, I mean, for me anyway, playing rhythm stuff, especially under singing, you want a bit more of that compression. So
Right.
you're not getting quite so much
Edge
on the note. So I'll just demonstrate that a sec. If this is with the least amount of compression in the Overdrive. It's a bit quieter,
Yeah.
because it's compressing more,
Exactly that.
and it's also taking away the edge. So I guess the treble frequencies are going into
And
harder compression.
Exactly. We're losing the transients and that sort of stuff, but that's what that compression is doing.
And to have it continuously variable
Yeah.
is super, because it might be, you know how it goes, and you doing your set one night, you've got exactly the same settings you had last night, but all of a sudden your guitar seems louder or much quieter. Than stepping on a different pedal or radically changing any major settings at that point is too much of a change.
Sure.
Just changing the clip characteristic, which is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really clever.
Yeah,
really
yeah,
clever.
nice.
Okay, Blues Driver. I mean, we've used this 1,000 times. It's just a really great. It's still shapy. It still has mid-range in it. The Wasser version has a little bit more bottom end, but loads of really great guitar players over the years. Our dear friends Andy Timmons, for example, this is an always-on pedal for him, and he uses his volume control to clean up. Still remains really dynamic. But I mean, I used my blues driver. I had a Keeley modded blues driver that I used for, forever. And I just found that the lower gain settings on it was a really beautiful, natural feeling low gain overdrive.
We've got this far into the video. We haven't said transparent in earnest once yet.
Yeah, because that means something different,
Yeah,
right?
it's not that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so.
I've got my overdrive on. You can't even hear it.
Can't even see it. It's a classic.
Yeah, I turned the gain down even
Yeah.
lower than you had it.
Yep.
So it's barely beyond boost territory at this point. But as you proved, it's still doing the clipping in the pedal.
And that's the way a lot of people use their blues driver, just to give it a bit of shape, that little bit of clipping.
Yeah.
But it's a really clever design, just to give it that sort of a natural vibe, the natural clipping vibe, which I think is magic. A really great example of when you dig in, it just gives you more
Yeah, a bit more
girth and
overdrive.
dirt. But when you back off, you're not losing volume. You know, it's just dynamics.
Yeah, it's right on that point, isn't it? It's right, as you said earlier on, it's right on that point of where it can be clean
Yeah.
or it can be overdriven.
Yep.
Whereas if you whack the overdrive up a bit more, you'd have to start using the guitar volume and then it will changes.
Indeed.
Which is no bad thing. It's just
No.
a different way to do it.
Okay, Greer Amps Lightspeed. Again, we've used this 100 times at the show. It's really fantastic, but it's designed, you know, there isn't a ton of gain in it, but it is specifically designed to be dynamic at lower gain levels.
Right.
But also, I think it's one of the most, shall we say, transparent. It's one of the most natural.
All right. What does transparent mean?
So,
I've got a cat for your pigeons.
right. It is, when you turn it on and turn it off, you should be able to set it to a point where we can almost not even tell if it's on, right? That the EQ shaping and everything is really natural and basically the input shape is very similar to the output shape.
It's for all those people who love the sound of their guitar and their amp, for whatever reason.
Yep.
And when they step, we, you, us, all of us, step on the overdrive pedal, it doesn't radically change the tone.
Indeed.
And if you think back to your childhood for a second, or when you first bought your first extreme distortion pedal, the experience of doing that is like, yeah, okay, here we are. Nice. Oh my God, it's a jar of wasps. I don't know what to do. So working back from that.
Man, it's a jar of wasps. Yes!
And then, I don't know, maybe your tastes change. Maybe you stick with a jar of wasps. But whatever. At some point you do get to the point where, or you may get to the point where you say, actually, what I want, I really like this guitar and amp. I spent loads of money on it.
Yeah.
What I want is just a bit more.
Exactly that. Exactly that. And it doesn't mean that any of these aren't, that, you know, we're all still talking about low gain overdrives, but the transparent thing is a different thing, right? It's just taking what you've got and just giving a little bit more.
But you're saying the Lightspeed
is really good at that.
Is in the transparent game.
It's in the transparent game. Yes. Yeah. Here you go. It's really good, isn't it?
To coin a term, it's pretty amp-like.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. For me, I mean, Nick Greer's done a lot of amazing things. This really is a masterpiece. And because it's amp-like, you can do things like, you know, if we
By amp-like, what do we mean?
We mean it feels like the way an amp breaks up
And compresses.
and compresses. That compression, that limiting, is everything about the way it feels under the fingers.
Yeah, you might have noticed me grimace when the pedal was off. I hit a G chord,
And it went
and
bang.
the amp went boff because it's got loads of headroom. It's low, it's attacky, and it's a great thing, great sound. But it's by engaging the pedal, we introduce that low gain and we take away that massive transient.
Indeed, indeed. And so, you know, with an amp with a pedal that's that amp-like in its response, you can do things like stack into it. So, you know, just with the Sick As, which has got that lovely 1K bump in it, if you play, and I'll just throw that in.
Okay, I want to hear the Lightspeed with the Tele in a sec.
Okay.
But it'd be nice to hear, let's stack these up and see what happens. That's a lovely sound. I mean,
Really beautiful.
really nice under the fingers. There are people who get confused when we say that.
Yeah.
We've said it before and people go, what are you talking about? You can't possibly change the feeling of the strings under the fingers with an overdrive pedal. No, you can't. What you can do is change your perception of how hard you hit the string and what comes out of the amp.
Indeed.
That's what we mean about what do we feel under the fingers.
Yeah.
It's actually what comes back out of the amp after you hit the strings with the plectrum.
Yeah.
It's actually what it is.
Yeah, totally.
But it does, what I find it does, the reason we talk about it feeling under the fingers is it because it gives you, I don't know, I introduce the term elasticity, where you're a bit freer with what you play because nothing has a hard edge on it, so you can be a bit kind of looser with everything.
Yeah.
And it's such a huge part of the difference between a clean sound and an overdriven sound.
Indeed.
And whether you're, you know, eye-popping JC120 clean or absolutely gone, what would that be? Square wave fuzz with no edge whatsoever.
Right.
Somewhere in that spectrum is one of those points that makes you feel good when you play.
Absolutely.
And it's all different for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, different guitars, different techniques. But yeah, I think the Lightspeed is a really wonderful example of a amp-like.
Sounded nice stacked. Can I hear the Lightspeed with the Tele?
Yeah, yeah. Super impressive.
Nice.
Yeah, really cool.
I've just worked out why I can hear so much treble from the 2-Rock. Because we've moved it.
Oh, okay.
When we did the last video, it was in the
yes,
middle.
in the middle. All right, now it's right behind you.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Very good. Because it's where I am. It's absolutely divine.
Yeah, yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's just, it's doing it to me in the ear hole, to quote George Clinton.
Okay.
He's talking about the funk, obviously.
He is. So this is the Red Snapper. So Brian Menner from Menatone, I've been a fan of his forever. He makes these beautiful pedals. He's got a couple of the absolute classics, one of them being the Red Snapper. It is like a really... it's based around a tube screamer. With some different, it's like asymmetrical clipping, and this is the 20th anniversary version, which is done in 2016. So if you think about the way a tube screamer, cuts off a bit of bottom end, cuts off a little bit of top end, it has this really lovely sort of upper lower mid, if that makes sense, like it's between 700 and 900 hertz. But the thing about this is that the way it breaks up when you dig in is just flippin' so dynamic. I love it.
In terms of what can affect that, so its basic design is, apologies for any over-technicalization here, an op amp and some clipping diodes.
Yes.
No, not going there. Let's just hear it.
Okay, have a listen. You play.
I'll play me Strat in a minute, actually, because if it's that, it deserves a...
Yeah. Let's actually grab the Strat.
A Strat. Oh, no. We're already in the game. We're already in the game.
All right.
It's nice. I mean, we are playing a lot of lead stuff here. Up on the high strings where you get that, where it's helpful to have a little bit of overdrive and a bit of sustain and all of that.
Yeah, but the difference is with a really great sounding low gain overdrive, how dynamic it is when you get up there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can say a lot just by changing that bit of pressure.
What's spinning me out a bit is the amps are a certain volume and Dan has deliberately set the pedals to be a bit quieter. I think what that's doing is it's not pushing the bottom end through the amps. So the amps are losing quite a bit of bottom end simply by not being as loud.
Yeah.
And you're doing two things by making it quieter. Not only are you reducing the dynamic range of the amp itself because it's quieter, so you don't have as much pick.
Yes.
You're also reducing the dynamic range within the pedal because it's clipping. So actually your option for what you can drive from here is reduced quite significantly. If you turn it up, you sort of do two things. You give yourself more volume to reach into,
Yeah.
but you also mean that when you turn it down, it doesn't completely disappear.
Sure.
Now, if you did all that just with the amp, there's not much that's pleasant about that last
Sure.
note there. But when you add the overdrive, obviously you don't have to play blues licks. You could play your chosen style, but yeah, that's the magic for me of
Sure.
a low gain overdrive, is when you've got
All that dynamic.
all of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
you can really start to drive at that point.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so massive fan of the Menatone stuff, and I just think for that mid pushed in the TS veins, it's one of my faves.
There's something I'd like to hear you do before we move on. I'd turn some delay on.
Yep.
Let's get you a nice modulated delay sound. And we're going to set the pedal as it is, maybe even with a little bit more gain.
Okay.
And with the Tele, if you could explore the world between really clean
Okay.
and as overdriven as it gets.
Okay.
I think it'd be quite interesting because this is such a dynamic guitar. It could be an interesting experiment, as they say here in the West Country.
It's pretty extraordinary.
So, as you heard, when Dan played the last chord there's quite a lot of overdrive,
Yeah.
but playing dynamically.
That's exactly it. That's the whole point. It's all that, the dynamic range just within here.
Just within there, yeah.
Yep.
It's a very lovely place to be. Quite often you need music that's going to support that style of playing, but that's up to you. Sorry, it took me ages to dial I just trying to get it to the point where it was almost into self-oscillation.
Right, okay.
That point where you
Yeah, no, it's great.
Nice.
Cool, okay. Thorpy Peacekeeper, again, it's got a really powerful EQ, and I think it has less of the mid in it. It's sort of more...
It's one of his first pedals, wasn't it? The Peacekeeper.
Yeah, it's an early one.
Yeah.
It's an early one.
And I think it helped establish Thorpy's reputation as, a serious player in the effects world in the way that he approaches stuff.
Indeed.
Yeah.
He have strong arms.
It's been a long time since I played this. I'm interested. Very nice. What's the? I can't. I haven't got my glasses on.
Middle
Is
one.
there a sweepable mid frequency?
Presence.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, bass treble and presence.
I think the presence control has something to do with the mid frequencies. Bizarrely,
Right.
even though it's labelled presence. Man, that's nice. That's nice.
It's really
Play that
beautiful,
a
isn't it?
sec. Sorry, I whacked up the bass at the end. I've been missing bass today. I don't know why. No use
So
to
that
it. No use
breaks-
to it in a band mix.
It reminds me more of like a Vox sizzle in that one. It's really beautiful. But yeah, really powerful EQ. You can get it feeling really natural.
Yeah. Lovely gain range too.
Yeah.
Really, really lovely gain range. And as always with Thorpy pedals, absolutely mega output.
Yeah.
If you want
to.
it.
Yeah. All right. Finally, broadcasting again. We've used it loads before. Based on a Neve preamp strip. Yeah. And it does that thing. We've heard it loads of times on those recordings where people use the preamp strip to overdrive the guitar signal.
Yeah, by the time you hear it in that way, it's usually way past the point of what the ones we always talk about, Revolution by the Beatles, for example.
Yeah.
The direct to desk overdrive sound is such a classic noise that you will hear down the...
Yeah, loads of Steely Dan tunes and that's the...
Just to make the point, this doesn't have to be that. It can just be a lovely fattening preamp, as we're about to find out.
Exactly. So have strongage on this one.
Okay. So it's been a long day.
But you feel how that breaks up different again.
It's great.
To everything else.
I really love... I love the broadcast for all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But that shaping...
Yeah.
One of the things broadcast has on it is a low cut. Dan was changing that as we went through. When you... For basic low gain overdrive, I don't want to cut too much low end.
Sure.
Because there's not a huge amount of clipping going on, not a huge amount of gain going on.
Yeah.
Therefore, things can remain clear.
Yeah.
So as long as you've got an amp with a bit of headroom, it can take the bass frequencies.
Yeah.
What happens is when you start to mash on the gain and start stacking things, which is often what happens when you've got a low gain overdrive in your chain of effects, that bass can get overwhelming, especially into a small amp.
Yes.
So having the low cut on there is really cool. Play for a sec, Dan. I'll see if I can demonstrate the demonstration. So what you've got there is a 200 watt speaker with an absolutely giant magnet on the back of it, in the back of the 2-rock cab. That can take pretty much anything you throw at it.
Yeah.
If Dan was playing at Princeton at this point, I mean, the AC30's on as well. If Dan was playing at Princeton at this point with a 10-inch speaker that was just giving up, that bass cut control without any bass cut on it would have just be a fantabulously wonderful sludgy sound.
Yeah.
But if you don't want that fantabulously wonderful sludgy sound, you can just carve that bottom end out, and it is so useful.
Yep.
Once you start stacking, maybe less relevant to the low gain tones as discussed previously.
Sure.
Interesting.
So I just thought it was worthwhile running through some low gain stuff. The whole point is, dynamics.
Yeah.
And as you progress in your journey, you'll get more and more out of your low gain ODs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to experiment with the overdrives you've got by turning the gain down.
That's what I was going to say. Any overdrive really can do low gain. Just turn the gain down. But for my money, harmonics, touch sensitivity, feedback in terms of the sort of feedback loop of you as the player, the amplifier, the guitar, all of that, pedals.
Yep.
That gets really interesting when you just stack a couple of these low gain things up together, as opposed to doing it all in one pedal or all in one amp.
Yeah.
And of course, if you do like the sound of overdrive from your amplifier, this all becomes even more relevant at that point, because you're just shaping.
Indeed.
And we've done that many times with boosts and things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fascinating, mate.
There we go.
So if you could take one low gain overdrive out of any of these, have you loved anything today?
I've loved the Red Snapper specifically for the solo tones, for those lower gain solo tones where you need to push without distortion.
Yeah.
Broadcast is always mind-blowing. Lightspeed for the lower volume tones. You know what I mean? It just, or as opposed to the boosty things, for that sound, to keep that sound at a lower volume, magic. I mean, to be honest, this here, down.
Yeah.
And these are great, but with the rig that we're using at the moment.
Yeah, because it all changes. I'm definitely going, if I'm singing and playing guitar and playing chords and sitting in a band, I'm going Lightspeed every day of the week.
Yeah, it's magic.
It just, that whole thing, the kind of music I like tends to be Americana-y type stuff, and I'm often playing open chords, And I think for that sort of stuff, Lightspeed is banging. And my solo boost, the Peacekeeper, I am reminded what a fab unit that is.
Yeah.
But they're all fab. I mean, we got some great sounds out of all of them today.
Indeed. There we go. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. A massive thank you to anyone that's gone to thatpedalshowstore.com and grab some merch. It's what helps fund the show. T-shirts and strings and
mugs,
pedals and hats and you name it. It's there. Also, a massive thank you to our preferred retailers in the UK and Europe is
Anderton's Music of Guildford in Surrey.
I'm doing something very interesting with Pete and Anderton's in the near future.
Are you?
I am indeed. I've got to work out if I can do it yet, but Pete got in touch with me.
Is it legal?
I'll get the reports back soon and let you know. But yes, thank you, Anderton's. Also to our mates in Australia.
Would be Pedal Empire of Brisbane in Queensland. Hello to Matt and the gang. Hope you're all well.
Yes. Thank you to our patrons on Patreon.
Indeed, we're on Patreon. Patrons, look out for emails in your inbox for regular giveaways that we're starting to do.
Indeed. Also, for our American friends, we have thatpedalshop.com.
Indeed, go there. It's for American people, or indeed people in America. Not necessarily the same thing. And you can buy pedals and stuff there, accessories. There's also some amps, I believe, going on soon. And some interesting information too, thatpedalshop.com.
Indeed. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a fantastic day. We'll see you on Monday for viewers, comments and questions.
See you then.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.